So what I assumed was going on from what everybody told me was he was cluster feeding, which meant he was on the breast almost 24/7. He would come off for a little bit and then would want to be right back on. And everybody kept telling me that's normal. He's just cluster feeding. He's cluster feeding. He's cluster feeding. And so I thought that's what was happening. But he wasn't gaining any weight. He was born at 6 pounds, 5 ounces. And at 1 month, he was 6 pounds, 5.5 ounces. When I finally was directed to a lactation consultant group, they had me do a weighted feed on him, and he fed for an hour and was getting less than 2 ounces of breast milk, eating for an hour. And they had told me at that point he was actually exerting more energy to eat for that long than he was actually taking in. So I ended up going to a meeting the very next day in a different hospital. And I told them initially, I said, I went to the meeting yesterday and he's only gained half an ounce. Okay, we're going to do a weighted feed because we want to see exactly how much he's taking in. And so we did the weighted feed, and she instantly went and got a pre-made bottle of formula for him and said, he needs this. And so I fed him the bottle, and she pointed out to me, she's like, look at how relaxed he is now. She said, she pointed out, like, look at how relaxed his hands are. And he was sound asleep, which he hadn't done. And so it was like, and she didn't say it in like a judgmental way or anything. It was just very like, look at what a difference this one bottle has done for him. And so she sent me home with a bunch of the little supplemental bottles and a plan to triple feed him. And to come back the next week. And so I started doing that, just kind of, I would around the clock do that. And I took him back the next week and he gained 2 pounds in a week. And she said that he basically, he was starving. The poor little boy was starving. So in that meeting, just in that week, I got so much more like education and support. And so we went back, they had me keep doing the same thing the next week. And I think it was probably 2 weeks later of doing the triple feeding. And he still was only getting 2 ounces at a time. And the lactation consultant told me, she said, if you're doing this, if you're pumping, if you're triple feeding him and he's still only getting 2 ounces, she said, that's probably all you're ever going to produce at one given time is 2 ounces. And she said, this will never be enough to breastfeeding is going to have to be secondary. You can supplement with breast milk, but she said, you're definitely going to have to feed him formula as the primary. And so that's what we did. And so I was, supplementing with breast milk, but I felt like I was just attached to my pump. I felt like I was, I just felt like I was holding my pump more than I was ever holding him. And so probably a week or two after that, I was on the phone with my mom talking to her about what was going on. And my mom finally said, Mandy, that baby needs you to be healthy and sane more than he ever needs breast milk. And it was like in that moment where I was given permission that I could just be done, and that I didn't need to sacrifice my mental health anymore, and I could just be done. And so I had scheduled an appointment. We had an appointment with his doctor for, I think, like the next day or a couple days later. And I was actually really nervous to tell her that I was going to give up breastfeeding, because I thought she was going to try and pressure me into continuing to do it, and I just didn't want to. And so I reluctantly told her, I said, I think I'm done trying to breastfeed in any capacity. And she, very different response than what I had expected. She told me, she said, you've tried harder at this than 98% of the moms I've ever worked with. And she said, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and it's okay. And I just broke down in her office, because she was right. Like, it was just never gonna work for us, and that was okay. But I needed the permission from people for some reason.